We are all set to get started, and we ask if you can just put your name and affiliation in the chat. Scott Paul, it's great to see you and looking forward to today's session. So Matt, I'll pass it over to you.
Great, thanks, Michelle. Michelle from the Century Foundation, one of our many BFFs as a part of this journey to strengthen American manufacturing. Like Michelle said, this is our AMCC weekly 30-minute national call. It happens every non-holiday Monday, so no call next week, FYI. It happens at the same time, almost been a decade here, 11:30 Eastern, 10:30 Central, 9:30 Mountain, and 8:30 Pacific, all working together to rebuild the American project. Yeah, we as folks who have been longtime participants, this is free open source. We have presentations, round robin conversations. It varies. We're excited today. We're going to have a conversation with Scott Paul, president of the Alliance for American Manufacturing. So we're excited about that. Welcome, Scott. And, you know, Jennifer Snyder from the Alliance for American Manufacturing has been a long time participant in IMCP and AMCC as a BFF. So we appreciate that teamwork because it's going to take a village, of course, to do that. Jennifer has been great working. You know, every region's different. She's taken a laboring oar, I know, at times in California with California state government process to get manufacturing more at the forefront there, as I suspect in many other jurisdictions. So thanks, Scott, for that. And but before we turn to our conversation, I want to first do what we normally do on this call, is a few things. Invite anyone who's new or not so new, just quickly introduce or reintroduce yourself. And then I'm going to, after that, I'll review a few things from our weekly AMCC update newsletter that goes out, and then frame the conversation that we'll have with Scott. So if you want to, Scott, we started doing this because people were like, hey, I come in, you know, this is a super exciting group, very dynamic, but want to say hello and tell where in the ecosystem they are, you know, either a public, private, nonprofit organization, manufacturers themselves, whatever. So I want to make sure, because you can always do it in the chat. And like Michelle said, David said, put your name and affiliation in chat. We use the chat extensively on these weekly calls so people can put announcements, other things that are important to the manufacturing ecosystem of support. So use that, but also want to give people a quick chance to come on camera or otherwise, just to say hello and where they're from. So let me stop for a minute if you want to raise your hand and say hello. If you haven't done that, this is an opportunity to do that. Otherwise, I will move on to the AMCC update items. Anyone want to say hello? We have just about 60 people on there. Eric, I see you placed a note there. Do you want to say a little bit more about yourself? Oh, you're on mute there.
Yeah, forget about that. Eric Canada, and we are working in a super regional project here in the Chicago, Milwaukee area. Derek Sherman and myself, and we've been a long time at different cluster groups. This will be the fourth time we've stood up a project, and we're looking to take this one long term. So it's an exciting opportunity. It's a large region focused on the durable goods industry primarily, because they support all the other industries that are critical to our national security and defense industry, obviously, and the economy.
That's for sure. It's the manufacturing is the cornerstone of the American economy, for sure, the engine. Hi, Lisa. Good morning.
Hi there. It's been a minute since I've shared what we've been cooking up for U.S. manufacturing, so I thought I'd give an update. We have a U.S. Census Bureau grant that is supporting ROS, my operating company, in building an AI tool to automate factory required regulatory reporting. The cost for factories, especially those that are less than 100 employees, is somewhere around $35,000 a year per employee. And we're using AI to bring that down to $500 per report required every year. So it'd be maybe a tenth of that cost for factories.
Thank
And
you, Lisa.
that platform will be ready within the next 3 to 4 months.
Well, keep us posted. Thank you for that. Let's see. Okay, I don't see anybody else. So thank you both for that, and great to have everybody on. So the second thing we do is talk about this AMCC update. And so I know you're aware of this, Scott. So we put every week a ton of time and energy into this AMCC update. And so it's free, so use it, get it out to your networks, and it includes a lot of items. Our operations director, David Van Sicklen, and we have a lot of BFF partners. A lot of you send us information about what other regions around the country should be aware of. A lot of our BFF federal agencies, which are a part of the AMCC community and are on these weekly calls, give us a ton of information. So there's funding opportunities, there's research, there are collaborations. So Eric was talking about, consortia initiatives in his neck of the woods, and that's really kind of been AMCC's, key thing. We brought 10 agencies together 10 years ago with the IMCP project, and that was designating 24 regions around the country to do a SWOT analysis around kind of how do you strengthen the manufacturing ecosystem of support around key industries. And so we've been working on that, and the AMCC update that goes out every week frames kind of important issues to strengthen the manufacturing ecosystem of support, to include how do we help these designated consortia, strengthen their consortia so they can advance sustainable development. So in this, it goes out just about every Friday. Every once in a while, it goes out on Saturday because David and I are on the move. And so this one went out on Saturday. And a couple of things I want to highlight. Save the date for December 12th. And 13th. So thanks to our BFF, the National Association of Counties, we will be co-creating the 2024 Manufacturing Momentum Summit in DC at their DC headquarters, and we're excited because they're telling us we can kind of co-create some virtual participation portions of that. And so just save the date right now. More to come. David and I hope to have a call with them on the agenda later this week and next week. So December 12th and 13th in DC and virtually, whatever. It's very, very cool. We had a good session thanks to DoD Mantech last year in DC, and so this Manufacturing Momentum Summit and workshop, we're hoping we can really make this workshop oriented. So excited about that possibility, or it's going to happen. So it's a done deal. The question is, what are the details? So stay tuned for that. And other items, of course, we have a ton of opportunities coming out from our BFFs in the AMCC update. To include the EDA Good Jobs Challenge, round 2 funding. DOE's got a slew of opportunities, funding opportunities. I wanted to shout out Illinois' MEP, and they did great work. I was back in Chicago last week. They did a big manufacturing matchmaking session for the Defense Industrial Base. Pretty impressive manufacturer turnout, I got to say. Hats off to the MEP, IMEC, and Ray Zaganto in particular. Our manufacturing institutes of innovation were involved. America Makes, Kimberly Gibson, great ecosystem leader, trying to pave the way on how institutes can be full-throated participants in these regional consortia. So super impressive. If you don't know Ray at IMEC, I would get connected to him because matchmaking is big, especially as it relates to DoD. So we got a lot of work to do. I was very impressed by how few manufacturers that showed up. I mean, there was like over 100 there that do not have relationships to strengthen the defense industrial base. So anyway, lots more in the AMCC update, but I don't want to take any more time from our distinguished guest, Scott Paul, who is a longtime BFF. Because it takes a village, no one's trying to own the universe on this thing. We just need to all work together to strengthen the manufacturing cornerstone of the economy. And Scott has been at the tip of the spear, so to speak, for that for a long time. You probably know him. He's got a podcast also. And he has done so much over the years, testifying in front of Congress, putting together op-eds, talking about, we're in this big competition with dictators and thieves, and they do reports and research. And there's a recent one we put in our AMCC update about the threat from China. And so anyway, let me just start by saying welcome, Scott. Thanks for being a BFF long time, and tell us more about what you have happening at the Alliance. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt. Great to see you, Michelle. Great to see you and some other friends, and appreciate the work that everybody is doing for the common purpose of strengthening manufacturing in the United States. And I'm glad that Jennifer Snyder from our team is able to be a regular participant on the call. I know that she likes to lean into this and has gleaned a lot from it. And I have received regular updates about it. And so I'm very grateful for the work that AMCC does. It's a quick word about the Alliance for those of you who aren't aware of our work. We're kind of unique in the policy sphere. We're a labor business partnership between the United Steelworkers Union, some of its manufacturers. Our mission extends well beyond that, though. We were established in 2007 to draw attention to some issues that had been beleaguering and still do in a lot of ways manufacturing at the time. The image, public support, having a holistic approach. And so that's why I'm a huge fan of the areas, Matt, you and folks have outlined this kind of 6 streams that are vital to creating a healthy manufacturing ecosystem in the United States. I think in a lot of ways we've been able to touch on those over the years, and for those that we thought needed to be lifted up a little more, that's where we've really put our emphasis to try to be issue spotters, problem solvers, rather than just piling on other things like that. And so we very much view ourselves as kind of taste-making issues so that others can lift it up, especially those who have the capacity to do so. And so that leads me to shipbuilding, which most people don't think about every day, except for if you're in logistics and run supply chains or the military. And it's something that we take for granted. We assume we have, we're bookended by two massive oceans. We have a lot of navigable waterways and lakes in the United States. We are blessed with water as a transportation source. And so the assumption is that we're a great shipbuilding power. And for most of our country's history, that used to be true, used to be absolutely true. Today, it is not so true. And it is yet another case where because of, in many ways, state support for industry in other countries, primarily China, the United States has played a shrinking role in this over the last couple of decades. And it is pretty dire, and the reason it is pretty dire is 2 or 3-fold. First, there is a shared ecosystem between commercial shipbuilding and military shipbuilding. And the commercial shipbuilding ecosystem has shrunk dramatically over the last couple of decades. In fact, I think the number is 20,500 suppliers within the shipbuilding industry went out of business over the last 3 decades or so. And so that means that for those commercial shipbuilders who are still operating in the United States, or for the 4 Navy yards, there's a dwindling set of suppliers from which to draw. That obviously has impacts on workforce development, innovation, competitiveness across a broad number of streams. So that's issue number one. Issue number two is having a little more, I guess, a little more management possibility over our logistics, shipping, and resilient supply chains. And so when when China, and in particular Chinese state firms, dominate this sector, it can raise alarm bells with respect to political risk and all sorts of other things as well. And so that's something that we have our eye on. And just a couple of pieces of data that I'll draw out from the testimony that I've given both to the Select Committee on China and to the United States Trade Representative. The U.S. produces only kind of an average of about 10 oceanic commercial vessels per year. China produces 1,000 per year. That's a staggering difference. The United States has fewer than 80 flagged merchant vessels in ocean-going service. China has 5,500. And in some years, our capacity or our production is 5 vessels. In fact, the U.S. Navy estimates that China's shipbuilding capacity is 232 times greater than our own. So this has, whether you look at the number of shipyards or the shipyard jobs, there's been a staggering amount of loss here. And our existing merchant marine, which in times of emergency is called to action to supplement either what the military can do or to provide other necessary services, consists of about 175 vessels right now that are on average 30 years old. And so to say we're dependent on foreign suppliers is quite an understatement. And so and we know the situation isn't going to get better without an intervention because shipbuilding is very capital intensive. The overcapacity that China has in this thing distorts the global market and impacts prices quite a bit. And it's look at it as a bit of a domino effect too. China subsidizes steel. That subsidized steel goes into the subsidized ships. Their subsidized oil companies buy those subsidized ships. It creates a dynamic in ship construction in the world where U.S. manufacturers have an incredibly difficult time competing on that price basis because of that distortion on so many levels by state-owned enterprises in China. And so there are a couple of paths forward on this, and I will stipulate that some of these definitely involve workforce development and getting a new generation into the shipyards, which has been a challenge. There are some really innovative programs that are in place. Huntington Ingalls has one with the United Steelworkers and the community college system in the Tidewater area of Virginia. That I think in many ways is a great model for all of this, but having that's going to be very important. One of the interventions that we've proposed is a trade intervention, and it's not what you would say, let's put a tariff on Chinese ships. That's not what this is about. But the United Steelworkers, which is one of our partners, and a couple of other industrial unions offered a trade case to the United States Trade Representative on shipbuilding, and they have proposed putting a fee on the dockage of Chinese ships in the United States that would be utilized to both capitalize new shipyards, new training, and to help scale up the ecosystem in the United States. And so the revenues that would be derived from that docking fee would go directly to rebuilding shipbuilding capacity in the United States. And obviously, this change is going to be incremental, and we're starting from it from frankly a pretty low floor here. And so the United States Trade Representative has looked at the evidence. They've decided to accept the case. We anticipate that they'll make a determination on the case sometime between now and November, which I believe is the deadline for doing that. And then after that, they'll decide what the appropriate kind of like remedy is. Is it in fact this kind of fee that would go towards rebuilding shipbuilding in the United States? But the reason, Matt and everybody else, why I wanted to lift this up is that this is a great case study in terms of how overcapacity by China and underinvestment in the United States have contributed to some pretty dissonant and dangerous outcomes that have a spillover effect for supply chain resiliency and obviously for national security with the combined ecosystems. So I know that as part of the weekly update, the team inserted a link, I believe, to the work that we've done on this, as well as kind of an explainer video. There's more resources available there. And
yeah, I dropped the report into the chat too, Scott, so people can just grab that right now.
excellent. Thanks so much for doing that, Matt. And the overcapacity report we know has gotten some attention. And so we're hopeful that we can continue to lift those aspects of it up to support the other good work that's going on. And I think our view on this is that you can do all the internal investment that you want, but unless there is a level playing field globally, a lot of that money is going to leak out or not be as effective as it otherwise could be.
Scott, there's a question that's come in from one of our BFF partners from the Center of Regional Economic Competitiveness, Leif Olson, about this fee. Does the docking fee not violate the most favored nation obligation under the World Trade Organization?
That is a great question, and I'm glad it was asked. There is allowance with respect to shipbuilding for some measures like this. In fact, the OECD shipbuilding agreement, when it was negotiated in the 90s, anticipated the permissibility of instituting fees like this. And I do want to emphasize that I think what the steelworkers proposed, well, I know what the steelworkers proposed here was a specific fee on Chinese ships rather than other kind of partner nations as well, because of the degree of subsidy, state ownership, and overcapacity that exists as well. But I think that the designers of the petition are pretty confident that it would withstand any sort of challenge like that based on the OECD shipbuilding agreement.
Hey, Scott, so I have a question. So a lot of the consortia that have been designated in recent years by the federal government to include the Department of Defense are focused on shipbuilding. I mean, we know AMCC does these roadshows around the country where we, co-create meetings with the ecosystem of support. And I know shipbuilding is big, and 3 just come to mind. I'm looking at our attendance. Some of them are on this call from Connecticut to Mississippi to Virginia. You mentioned Virginia there, and so Trade is a key part of it. Of having a funding stream to strengthen the ecosystem of support for shipbuilding is important. What do you rely on in terms of assessing how to strengthen a shipbuilding ecosystem of support? You know, like you're making moves like you just described, and I think that's important leadership there. But that's only one thread within the ecosystem, right? Like, you know, how do you assess the ecosystem in total? Yeah.
Yeah, it's a very, very good question. And so I think one of the aspects of this is that we also need to make sure that the shipbuilding industry is competitive in the United States, because there's no way, nor should we force commercial operators to buy one type of ship over another necessarily. So we have to ensure that we're cost competitive with this, which is why these resources should be invested in worker training, productivity, research and innovation, all of that scaling up, creating a broader supplier base so that there is that opportunity to be a little more competitive in that. And I think what we observed is that, you know, this problem has been festering for a couple of decades now. And so it's not getting any better. In fact, it's only getting worse. And so it requires an intervention like this.
Yeah, it makes sense, Scott. Yeah. It totally does. And we got to all work together to kind of understand it, because it's a complex system, right? It can be intimidating to a lot of folks. And I call these folks here on this call systems leaders, right? Because they're understanding the complex system, or working to understand the complex system. They only occupy one silo within it, but we need to understand how our silo works with the other ones, right? So we can make a bigger difference and you know, share it broadly across regions. I see Mike Routon up in Maine saying that they're going to have a maritime industrial base up there pretty soon. But that's the point. It's like we have a lot of resources around this country. We just need to tap into them and work together to do this bottom up. These are 30-minute calls. One of the secrets for them, Scott, is that they are short and on time, and that's what keeps these busy systems leaders in the game to utilize and add value to AMCC. So we're going to keep it at that. I want to say thank you for your ongoing teamwork, and don't forget, everyone. Well, Michelle, you'll remind folks about next week. Let me turn it to you so you can close out the meeting. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Scott, and everyone. We're looking forward. Matt, I think I think Labor Day is in 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, did I misspeak there? Yeah, thank you. So we'll be back next Monday.
We'll be back next Monday. Looking forward to seeing everyone at the same time, and hope everyone has a great week.
Thank you, Michelle.
All right, take care. You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.